Welcome to the Frequency Advantage podcast, the future of wellness. We're here to make sense of the science and simplicity behind energy, frequency, and vibration in a way that actually fits into everyday life. Because now is the time to understand how frequencies can help you feel better, live clearer, and create real change from the inside out. Let's dive in.
Hello. Welcome to the Frequency Advantage podcast. I'm Marcus Bird with my co-star, my co-creator, my co-host, the amazing Sally. Hey, Sal, welcome.
Hi, Marcus.
Great to have you here. Mm-hmm. I know. And we're at episode 4.
Can you believe it?
Super exciting. It's great. So if you haven't seen the other episodes, go back and watch those episodes because we're working in a bit of sequence to talk about, frequency and what frequency is and what does it mean and how does it work and where does it come from and those sort of things. So in last episode, we talked a bit about how frequency is created and how, the universe works with it and sort of the quantum aspects of frequency. So some of the core fundamentals and foundational information about frequency. And today, Sal, what are we going to talk about today?
Oh, I get very excited about this one because how it applies in the human body. So we've done the science behind it. How does it work in our body?
I think that's good. Yeah, I think it's important that we talk about that because as we move through this, we're going to get into more and more practical application of frequencies, and we've got some amazing guests coming up. We're going to get into the actual frequency sort of recipes and remedies themselves, and we're going to share a whole lot of case studies and some really amazing things that frequency does in the human body and how we can create really big shifts and changes, right? And you've seen a lot of them, right?
I've seen so many, but I think it's been important that we've gone through the foundational stages of where frequencies have come from and how they work. And now today we're applying it in the body. Whoa. And this is where I'm excited because of the experiences I've had and my clients have had. This is where it really starts to take off.
Yeah. And I think there's an important aspect as well with this and why we're going a little bit methodically with it, because both you and I have sort of had the experience in the earlier days of sort of rushing into this and almost sort of throwing frequencies around, and it was a whole lot of fun. It was a bit wild west, and then starting to realize just how much respect and careful honor that we need to give to frequencies. And we've sort of we've learnt that bit the hard way in a way, and clients have learnt that a little bit, and I'm really pleased to say we're coming down to a beautiful refined nature of it, but we do have a deep respect for it, right?
Huge, deep respect. It's so powerful and so pure. And if nothing else, my mantra these days is go low and slow and less is more.
Absolutely. I love that. And it's a good one to sort of live by. Certainly when you're starting to work with frequencies, I think they're great sort of mantras to work with. And I think the mistake people make is that, but I listen to frequencies all the time. I listen to music. I listen on the radio in the car, and I listen to this, and maybe I download some frequencies off YouTube or Spotify and some healing frequencies, and they don't affect me, right? I feel a little bit better. But when we're working with very specific frequencies in a more therapeutic environment, then we have to be a lot more respectful of the frequencies because they do shift things really profoundly. And that's what we want to talk about today. Well, why is that the case? What creates that? Why does it shift things so profoundly? And why do we maybe have to be a bit more respectful when we're doing very specific frequencies? And again, when you're working with music, you're listening to a range of frequencies. Those range of frequencies are set in a bit of a harmonic pattern, but you're applying lots of different frequencies. There's chords, and then there's harmonies, and then there's all sorts of frequencies, right, that are running, because when someone plays a guitar, you're strumming many different notes, and those notes are shifting and changing as the song progresses. Whereas from a frequency sort of therapeutic point of view, we're really just applying one core frequency into the body, that's designed to shift, change, alter, remove, repair, whatever the words are, that person. So we're not listening to a range of sort of, frequencies in a music set. We're actually listening to something very, very specific. And so we have a really deep purity of the frequency. And again, with YouTube and those sort of frequencies, they're not necessarily at the purest form. They're often very general sort of frequencies. They're not tuned into you in any way. And therefore, they may still have an effect, but they're not going to have a necessarily detrimental effect if you listen to them for too long or disrespect them in ways. But we want to talk about very much the therapeutic part of frequency, the heart of the matter, the real core of it, and why this is the future of wellness. Right, Sal?
Oh, definitely. And it's just working with the human body. It's so intricate. But like today we're talking about how the frequencies react with our body and how they integrate with ourselves and how they create out of illness or, create an environment. And so powerful. And I think what you said is something we really have to be mindful of, that when we're working with specific targeted frequencies, they are so pure and so powerful, and we need to respect them. And then we can layer with the harmonics or the octaves or the chords and amplify the delivery of that frequency to help create greater wellness in the body. Very, very powerful.
Absolutely. Yeah, very, very powerful. So I think one of the best metaphors to think about when you're thinking about frequency in the human body is the metaphor of the orchestra, and that the body is like an orchestra. In that, when an orchestra is playing, there are many different instruments that are playing. They're all tuned to the same sort of bass note, and they're all playing the same song, and they're all playing in rhythm and harmony with each other. But they're made up of lots and lots of different instruments. And we can imagine that the human body is exactly the same in that, we have both sort of different levels of the body. So we've got almost the atomic structure of the body, so the elemental structure of the body. And each of the elements have a frequency. And the fun part is science has been able to measure those frequencies. So we actually know the frequencies of the periodic table, for example. So each of those elements. But then as we start to expand, we know that, atoms themselves have a frequency, and then we know that cells have frequency, and organs have frequency, and systems have frequency, and the body, has the frequency. And what I like to think, Sal, is that when you bring all of those sort of different frequencies together, when they are playing in harmony, they create a resonant frequency field. And again, when they're in harmony, they create a harmonic resonant frequency field. And when they're disharmonic, they create a disharmonic resonant frequency field. And I think one of the things we do from a therapeutic point of view is we identify what instrument is playing out of tune, which instrument's playing the wrong note or not tuned correctly, and then look to bring that back into a harmonic state. I think that's a good way to think about, frequency from a therapeutic point of view, but also the body as frequency.
I love. I don't know if you were at school and playing in the orchestra back then. I know I was, and particularly if few of the violins were out, it was screechy. It was hard to sit through, and when you're best shot, but poor parents had to sit through so much disharmony listening to the
I know. But it's kind of interesting because it can also be very subtle, where sometimes you'll listen to an orchestra or a band or something and it sounds okay, but you just go, something's not quite right. I mean, in our human form, we are very sensitive to harmonic and disharmonic in that, when we listen to a harmonic piece of music, it makes us feel happy and joyful and light and just makes us feel calm and at peace. And a disharmonic, piece of music makes us feel, sort of aggravated or, screechy or, and so sometimes, when the orchestra's out of tune somewhere, we can operate normal. So the orchestra can keep playing. It can keep playing something that sounds pretty okay, but to the tuned ear and to you personally from your body, you might feel sick or out of sorts. The rest of the world might not necessarily notice it, but you'll notice it. And this is when one of the instruments is slightly out of tune. Something's not quite right. And it'll show up in sometimes subtle ways. And the sensitive nature of it, maybe I'll just share, this sort of example, that if we imagine that, this is sort of the human resonance, which is made up of, the strings we talked about last time, and obviously atoms and cells and organs and systems and the body itself. And the collection of all these frequencies are what we would refer to as the resonant frequency field. And really, there's one of two things that can happen in this. You're either in a sort of disharmonic state or a harmonic state. And it can be quite subtle, right? Because then the idea is to look at, well, if it's in disharmony, the resonant frequency field is just off. We've got to look at, well, where is it just off? And it also, to some point, sort of, Sally, it comes back to almost that, another way to think about it is, when you're fully aligned with you're living your spiritual path or your energy path or whatever, things tend to work out so much better. So when you're aligned with your sort of true baseline or true resonant frequency, everything works out better. And I think psychologically and spiritually, we spend our life sort of searching for that. How often have you heard someone say, I just want to be me. I just want to express and live the, me. I mean, how often do we hear that in a therapeutic environment?
So often, particularly these days. And I think we're more and more sensitive as we're going through these shifts and changes. And so we can more in tune when we're out of alignment and just feel not quite right, that disharmony within. I think we're more sensitive to that.
Totally. I think when we're in harmony, everything feels just beautiful, and it's a bit like the way I look at it is a bit like waking up on a beautiful sort of spring or autumn morning, going outside, the air's crisp, but there's no wind, everything's just perfectly silent, and you just go, it's so beautiful to be alive. It's that moment. And I think when you're in harmony, you feel that. And also when you go into harmonic environments, like one of the things I love to do at the end of the year is to go out into the bush, right, and just sit by a river and not have any phone or any, any distractions, and just be. And being in nature has a beautiful harmonic resonance, because again, everything emits this sort of resonance. And from an orchestra point of view, if we keep that analogy, if we go out into the forest is made up of lots of different instruments. There's big trees, which could be trombones, and there's smaller trees that could be violas, and do you know what I mean? There's animals, and there's creatures, and there's rivers, and they're all emitting a beautiful sort of harmonic resonant frequency field. And if you find a piece of bush that's far enough away from, the human influence or cities or roads, and then it just becomes this beautiful, peaceful, harmonic place. And that can then influence us to come back into sort of more harmonic states as well, which I think is really beautiful.
Yeah, and coming back to the music, often the heavy metal stuff. I mean, I like heavy metal, but a lot of it gives me a headache. Like it literally causes a headache, and I feel I have to shut it out. I have to walk away. And I think there's so much in our environment today that's very heavy and dense energy that causes that disharmony, causes a headache, causes the stress. You can feel it rising up in your body. So when you become more in tune and know where your baseline is, where your baseline frequency is, then it helps you to enable you to find those situations where you can restabilize yourself. And that's where something like 432 is very stabilizing, just general frequency.
It's a beautiful frequency to work with. But I think you're right. There's so many things in the environment that can bump us out of that baseline resonant frequency, and, so many disharmonic resonant patterns that exist in our sort of manufactured world, right from the shape of buildings, which there's been so much research on, sick buildings because of shape and form and the way they flow or don't flow, which is then creating, again, we can bring all of that down to a frequency. So it's creating disharmonic resonant frequencies. And often hard lines tend to create disharmonic frequency, whereas round corners and lines tend to create more harmonic frequencies. So even that's kind of fascinating. But if we look inside the body, and I just wanted to share, these couple of images as well, Sal, around even, in the human body, we can see that, from a cellular point of view, that the cell itself is made up of a whole range of frequencies. In particular, this cell we're looking at is part of the gut cell or the intestinal cell, which sits at a sort of gut frequency of 2 to 4 sort of hertz, is what they've found. The cell itself, general cells themselves, have resonances of around 40 to 400 kilohertz, depending on the sort of completion of the cell. But this cell in particular, 2 to 4 hertz. But each part of the cell, you've got nucleus, plasma membrane, cytosol, liposome, mitochondria, all of these individual parts all have a frequency. And then if you sort of bring that out and you then go into the organ, right, the organ again has a resonant frequency. In this case, the small and large intestine from 144 hertz and 162 hertz, and then together 281 hertz. And again, if we pull back out further, we look at the system. So the intestinal system, which has a 160 hertz resonant frequency field, and we can sort of really see how, as each section has its own sort of resonance or its own frequency. And again, there are sort of resonant fields within resonant fields. We can take the whole body as a resonant frequency field, but we can also look at the digestive system has various frequencies that make a resonance, and the actual intestines themselves have various frequencies which create a resonance. And we sort of have this complexity of resonant fields on resonant fields, which then make up this this idea of the body orchestra that we sort of talk about, that all these parts are reflecting very similar to how how an orchestra sort of works. But that gives us a lot of insight. It gives us the ability to assess and to look at, well, where are the sort of disharmonic resonant patterns playing out in someone, and then sort of almost retune the instruments, tell them how to play the right frequency.
And that's what I love about working with frequencies, because they do reveal to heal. They help, they guide you as into, someone may present with an illness, but then you go, so let's peel back the layers. Is it the system? Is it the organ? And going down to the cellular level, using frequencies to restabilize, to get you back into resonant, baseline resonant fields. It's so powerful. And when you start to think about it and unpack it, you go, wow. And this is where the respect comes in, because you're working down at the deep cellular level and restabilizing. It has to have a ripple effect throughout the body. It's just as you're working there.
I agree. Yeah.
And I think that's something that we understand the science of what we're doing, but the body in the physical form needs that time to process it, to go, right, I've been
sometimes.
Zapped. To riddle the wobble, you have to sort of re-wobble to get you back in.
And it sort of reconfigures itself, realigns itself and reharmonizes itself, because I think at the end of the day, the body wants to be in a harmonic state. We just keep throwing disharmonic things at it, right? Either from the environment, from what we eat, or even to the point of what we think and feel, right? The experiences we have in the world, even that can shift, change, and alter, frequencies within us. So, we're so incredibly sort of sensitive and influenced by frequencies, and being able to apply this to bring frequency back into harmonic states is incredibly powerful, which you and I are both slightly passionate about. Only slightly. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. We had nothing better to do, so we thought we'd start this podcast, No, we are incredibly passionate, because we want to share this with the world. The world needs to hear this now, and to realize that, that healing ability and power is within our grasp, and within our reach. And, we're going to talk about specific things that we've been working with, and client sort of cases and some of those things, to sort of show you how this plays out, just how profound, this work is. And we want to help and support you to, come into that most harmonic resonant frequency state, so you can live the fullness of who you are, right?
Well, as we think it's the future of wellness, and it's just opening people's eyes, extending to when we're taking greater responsibility and ownership of our own health and wealth and future, using frequencies in our toolbox for your everyday life. I mentioned that last week, having it as just a tool you can use, like 432 when you're having a stressy day, just to help you calm the farm.
And it's so great. And when you create those remedies, and, it's so fantastic. So, and we're going to open up some of these things to you. So make sure you like and subscribe to this channel, because we will be sharing some of the recipes and some of those more sort of general recipes to help you to come back into a harmonic, stable sort of state. There's some remedies that Sal and I use often throughout our day to help us to calm and settle and come back into harmonic states after busy days or craziness that, the world sometimes throws at us, or sometimes we create ourselves. So we want to share that with you. So please subscribe, and love to hear your comments as well. Please let us know. If you've got any questions or anything, we'd love to answer those in future episodes. So that's great. Sal, thank you so much again. So great to be doing this with you and sharing our mutual passion and experience with this. And it's super cool, right?
Very, very cool. Yeah, strap yourselves in, as we always say, because next week we're having a special guest.
Special guest? Oh, my Lord. Yeah. How excitement.
Already.
Yay. Well, that'll be great. We look forward to sharing that special guest with you, and they're going to share their experience and all of the beautiful things that they're experiencing as well. So we look forward to it. So once again, thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Please hit a like and a subscribe and click that little bell to be notified when the next episode's released, and we will see you really soon. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Sal. Bye.
Thanks for joining us on the Frequency Advantage, the future of wellness. Keep exploring, keep learning, and most of all, keep raising your vibration. See you next time.